My mother-in-law's terrible act made me sick for 2 months. How I got even with $1 million, the beginning of the end. When I married Tom, I knew his mother Margaret would be a challenge. She had a reputation for being demanding, controlling, and impossibly critical. Still, I loved Tom, and I believed I could manage the relationship with his mother. After all, I had no idea just how deep her manipulative tendencies ran. It all started innocently enough, or so I thought. Margaret would drop by unannounced, helpfully rearranging our furniture or reorganizing our kitchen. But her critiques grew sharper with time. Nothing I did was right in her eyes. The way I cooked, the way I dressed, even how I cleaned our house. Tom would brush off her comments, saying that's just how she was. But it was clear to me that Margaret saw me as a rival, not a daughter-in-law. Chapter 2. The Terrible Act. Everything came to a head during a family dinner we hosted for Tom's birthday. Margaret insisted on cooking one of her special dishes, an exotic casserole she claimed was a family recipe. I hesitated, knowing Margaret's habit of controlling situations, but Tom encouraged it, so I agreed. The evening seemed to go well until I took the first bite of the casserole. It was an odd flavor, one I couldn't quite place. I politely complimented Margaret on the dish, but as the evening wore on, I began to feel unwell. The next morning I was violently ill. At first, I assumed it was just a stomach bug, but as the days turned into weeks, my condition worsened. Doctors were baffled, unable to pinpoint the cause. I lost weight rapidly, was constantly fatigued, and could barely keep food down. Margaret, meanwhile, was the picture of concern, visiting daily and bringing remedies that only seemed to make things worse. I was bedridden for 2 months, my health in a downward spiral. Tom was beside himself with worry. Chapter 3. The Discovery. One day, while Tom was at work and Margaret was out running errands, I received an unexpected visitor, Margaret's sister, Helen. She had always been kinder to me, and we had a good relationship, though she rarely involved herself in family matters. Helen came in and sat down, her expression grave. "I need to tell you something, dear," she began. She then told me that Margaret had a history of making people sick to get her way. She had done something similar to a woman Tom dated before me, though not as severely. Helen suspected that Margaret had poisoned me. Stunned, I didn't want to believe it, but Helen insisted. She suggested I have the leftover casserole tested. When Tom returned home, I confided in him, and though he was initially skeptical, he agreed to take the casserole to a lab for testing. The results were chilling. The dish was laced with a potent, slow-acting poison. Margaret had been poisoning me for weeks, ensuring I was too weak to even think straight. The realization hit Tom hard. His own mother was responsible for my illness. Chapter 4. The Plan for Revenge. I was furious, but I was also determined to get even in a way that would hurt Margaret where it mattered most: her pride and her pocketbook. Margaret was a wealthy woman, thanks to a sizable inheritance and shrewd investments. But she was also incredibly vain and obsessed with maintaining her image in high society. I devised a plan with Tom's help. We decided not to confront Margaret directly. Instead, we played along as though we were oblivious. I began to recover, slowly regaining my strength while maintaining the facade that nothing was amiss. Tom and I hired a private investigator to dig into Margaret's financial dealings. We discovered that she had made some questionable investments in a company that was on the brink of scandal. Knowing how Margaret prided herself on her financial acumen, we saw an opportunity. Chapter 5. The Sweet Taste of Revenge. I secretly purchased a controlling stake in the company, thanks to a well-timed loan and some savings I had hidden from Margaret's prying eyes. With control in hand, I exposed the company's dubious practices, leading to a public relations nightmare. Margaret's once vaunted investment was now worthless. But I didn't stop there. I anonymously leaked the story to the press, ensuring that Margaret's name was tied to the scandal. Her reputation was ruined. She lost millions almost overnight and was ostracized by her social circle. When Margaret finally realized what had happened, it was too late. She confronted Tom, but he remained tight-lipped, feigning ignorance. Margaret's health, once robust, began to falter under the stress of her ruined finances and social standing. The tables had turned. Chapter 6. The Aftermath. Margaret moved away shortly after, her pride shattered and her wealth gone. She never admitted to what she did to me, but the look in her eyes the last time we saw her told me everything I needed to know. She knew she had been bested. I fully recovered, and Tom and I grew closer than ever. With Margaret out of the picture, our lives were peaceful. We eventually sold the shares in the company, turning a significant profit, which we used to buy our dream home far from Margaret's reach. The experience taught me a lot about resilience and the length some people will go to maintain control. But it also showed me that sometimes the best revenge is not just living well, but outsmarting those who try to bring you down. And in the end, I didn't just get even, I came out on top in this suspenseful and emotionally charged story. A young woman marries into a family where her mother-in-law, Margaret, is determined to control and undermine her at every turn. When Margaret's actions escalate into a horrifying act of poisoning, the protagonist becomes gravely ill for 2 months, with her health rapidly deteriorating. The revelation of Margaret's sinister intentions leads to a carefully crafted plan of revenge, where the protagonist turns the tables on her mother-in-law. Through intelligence and determination, she uncovers Margaret's financial vulnerabilities, causing her to lose her wealth and social standing in a devastating scandal. In the end, the protagonist not only recovers her health but also secures a victorious and peaceful future with her husband, leaving her mother-in-law to face the consequences of her terrible actions. This is a story of resilience, cunning, and ultimate triumph over manipulation and malice.